Hello everyone, this is John Blackstone with another episode of my two-part series titled The Jaws Phenomenon. If you're a serious Jaws fan, please go and check out part 1. But in this episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit more in depth about how Jaws affected me as a kid and how it affected culture in general. I'm also going to look back on my trip to Universal Studios where I was able to see the Jaws attraction shortly after it was opened. I'm also going to share a really cool recording I have when I attended a science fiction seminar, and the director of Jaws 2, Jeannot Schwark, was there, and he played the trailer for Jaws 2 for the very first time. The audience went wild, and you've got to hear this recording. So, if you're a Jaws fanatic like I am, or just interested in pop culture, you'll want to check out this episode. Jaws was released June 20th, 1975, and I was 11 years old at the time. And in part 1, I kept saying that I was 12 years old. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's impossible for me to imagine that my parents let me see Jaws as an 11-year-old kid. But they did. They probably didn't know what they were getting into. But as kids, we were already aware of Jaws because of the book, and we had seen the book at the grocery store or wherever, and that picture on the cover is just so compelling. It's this monstrous shark swimming up towards this naked girl, and so we were very well aware of what Jaws was about, the book. But then, because I was a movie fan, I remember learning in one of the magazines that they were going to turn Jaws into a movie, and of course, I was enticed immediately and had to see it. When I was a kid, we grew up in a town that was blessed with a drive-in movie theater right in the center of our little town. It was kind of like the hub of our town. It was the Kenmore Drive-In, and it was painted in this bright blue and red and yellow, and it was just like this beacon in our little town. And for kids who loved movies, I loved that theater. Every time we drove past the theater, I would strain to see what was showing on the screen. I remember several times seeing things I probably shouldn't have seen, but anyway, it was so thrilling to have a movie theater in our little town, and my family went there a lot. We saw so many great movies there. Planet of the Apes, Poseidon Adventure, the Pink Panther movies, just so many great movies. And for me, the drive-in theater was an incredibly magical experience. If you've watched any of my other podcasts, you know that I was already involved in making movies with my friend Bruce Peterson since we were younger, since we were around 7 years old. And so when Jaws came out, we were already big fans of the Poseidon Adventure. So Jaws was just sort of a natural. We knew that we had to see this movie. I did have to convince my mom and dad to let me see it, but sure enough, we went down to the Kenmore Drive-In where it was playing. And man, what an experience. It just turned me upside down. But one of the amazing things I remember about Jaws playing in our little downtown movie theater was that it was the first real huge summer blockbuster that had happened since I was a kid. And the traffic used to go for miles. It would literally make it impossible to travel to some areas because of the cars that were lined up to go see Jaws. And it was every Friday and Saturday night. So I ended up seeing Jaws several times as a kid, and I was a fanatic, a total fanatic. Now, of course, as a kid, the first thing that I was looking for was magazines. Mad Magazine was a big thing to all of us kids in those days. And of course, I had to buy the Mad Magazine when that came out. But I remember buying Time and other magazines that had Jaws on the cover. And I think shortly after the movie was released, there was an official Jaws poster that was released. It was a cool poster, but it didn't have the big Jaws logo on it. So I was kind of bummed out about that, but I had to have that poster. I remember buying the Jaws log, which was the book about the making of the movie. And that was an amazing book to read. As a young filmmaker myself, that book was incredible. It's incredible to this day. I read it at least once every couple of years. It's an awesome book. There was also another book called The Making of the Movie Jaws, which was good. One thing that I was disappointed in was the Jaws merchandise. There was stuff that came out that had Jaws stamped on it, but it was like nothing really, really cool. This was before Star Wars, so this was before people were really hip about creating cool merchandise for movies. There was t-shirts that were okay. They would throw the Jaws logo on anything. Personally, throwing the word Jaws on a side of a toy truck wasn't my idea of a cool collectible. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of stuff that was available at the time that I was interested in. It all seemed kind of cheap, and I wasn't interested in most of it, but I did end up finding this really cool rubber shark. And this is the only thing I ever found as a kid that I thought was really cool, and it wasn't even an official Jaws merchandise item. I would have died if there was the kind of Jaws merchandise there is today, and I have purchased some of it, but man, I would have died if I had some of this stuff when I was a kid. The movie Jaws was a huge cultural event, and all of my friends and all the kids in school loved Jaws. We talked about it all the time, and it was so popular that somebody actually put out a parody record called Mr. Jaws. I'm going to let 11-year-old John tell you about it.
Now you will hear a pretty good song. I take this from the radio. It's called Mr. Jaws, and it's based on the movie about Jaws. It's really good. Most of you have probably seen Jaws, but this one is pretty funny. Lots of people have the record, especially in our school. Well, just listen to it.
We are here on the beach where a giant shark has just eaten a girl swimmer. Well, Mr. Jaws, how was it? Dynamite! And what did she say when you grabbed her? Please, Mr. Please.
So yeah, Mr. Jaws was this big hit record. It was played on the radio all the time. And I will put a link in the description that will take you to a conversation I had with my friend Jeff about this record, Mr. Jaws. So as I've mentioned many times before, my friend Bruce and I used to make movies together, but we also used to make these audio recordings, and I'm a little embarrassed to play this, but this was Bruce and I trying to do our audio version of Jaws.
Hold on to me, Clint! Hold on! Brody, I'm sliding down! Get away from me! Get away from me! You got me! I'm sliding! Oh my God, he's biting him in half! Whoa! He's dead! He's dead, he blew up!
I confess I'm a little embarrassed by that, but we were kids. We were 11, 12-year-old kids, and we were so into this movie that it was so fun for us to make our own version of Jaws. Jaws was also the first movie soundtrack I ever purchased, and we used to listen to that all the time. And the main title actually was a single that was released, and that played on Top 40 AM radio, which is amazing. It's hard to imagine a time when a movie could be such a cultural phenomenon that the theme was released as a single and hit the top 40 of the Billboard Top 100. John Williams was a pop star. He actually hit number 1 with the main theme title from Star Wars. It's amazing to consider that the title theme songs became hit singles. I remember being in the swimming pool when we were kids, and everywhere you looked, there was kids that were going dun 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 dun, trying to scare someone else in the pool. I used to do that to my sister all the time. It used to really freak her out. She still won't let me forget it either. In part 1 of this series, I spoke with my friend Bruce, and we remembered the time that we attempted to make our own shark movie. And it was a total colossal disaster, and our quote-unquote mechanical shark fell apart as soon as it hit the water. I was so bummed out about that, and I wasn't going to give up, so I decided to make a movie called Predator. And I got together with my friend Bob Smith and started putting together this movie about a killer dog. Yes, it was a killer dog. I don't think anyone else ever did that. But it was really out of desperation to want to make something that was like Jaws, but not having the money or the equipment to actually do it. So Killer Dog made sense to me. Jaws had such an impact on my life. It really made me want to be a filmmaker. It really inspired me to make movies. And this movie, Predator, I think shows some signs that I was starting to figure out how to do it. I think it's kind of a pretty cool little project for a home movie. If you've watched my podcast about Star Wars, you know that I took a trip to California with my family in August of 1977. And one of the things I was most excited about was to go to Universal Studios, the Jaws attraction at Universal Studios. And I shot this footage on Super 8 of the Jaws attraction as it appeared at that time. But another amazing thing that I discovered during my trip to Universal Studios was when I looked up upon one of the sound stages and there was this giant poster for Jaws 2. And I had no idea that there was a Jaws 2 in the making at that time. I was totally flipped out. By that time, I was a total Star Wars freak, of course, and shortly after that trip to California, I attended a science fiction seminar that was really basically just an excuse to see John Dykstra speak about Star Wars. But during that event, Jeannot Schwark was there, and he spoke about the making of Jaws 2. And to the audience's great thrill, he debuted the first trailer for Jaws 2 at that event. This is really pretty amazing. Listen to the response of the audience as they watched this trailer for Jaws 2 for the very first time.
And now this is a 4-minute trailer advertising Jaws 2. Jaws 2 will be released on June 16th of 1978.
When the movie Jaws first opened, it created a sensation. And shark sightings increased by the thousands in all the vast and unknown depths of the ocean. How could there have been only one? Once there was a terrible tragedy here, but today Amity has a new hotel and the promise of a perfect summer. Now, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, continues.
Chief Brody, can we go, please?
I think we may have another shark. Are you serious? Lorraine Gary. And Murray Hamilton. Look at this. That's a shark. You started a panic on a public beach. I want somebody decides to sue us. That's a shark. You told us not to think about that. That's what the shark looks like because I've seen one up close. There's something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again. Don't press it this time.
Find out there.
Over there!
All I know is the boy is dead and my son and husband are still out there.
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality.
I still get goosebumps when I listen to that recording because I just remember feeling the excitement and anticipation in the air as we were watching this preview for the first time. Obviously, it made me very excited to see Jaws 2. Unfortunately, I can't say I was all that thrilled with Jaws 2. It was cool, but I had already moved on to Star Wars, and the original Jaws had such a place in my heart that really nothing could have matched up to that. To be fair, it's a decent movie. It's certainly much better than 3 or 4, but that goes without saying. In my home theater, I have a 3D Blu-ray player, I have a 3D projector, and these are 3D glasses. So I'm able to watch arguably the worst 3D effects, the worst effects period ever generated for a movie in very clear, crystal, 4K 3D vision. Now it will look out of focus to you because it's a 3D film, but it doesn't matter if it's blurry because it's literally one of the worst movies ever made. So this is supposed to be an exciting 3D effect, and I'm watching it in 3D, and believe me, it's not exciting. It's laughable, though. As I've mentioned before, in those days there was no such thing as home video. The only way you could see a movie like Jaws was if you went to the movie theater or if you purchased it on Super 8. And because I was a movie maker, I had a really nice Super 8 movie projector, and I was totally freaked out when I discovered that Universal 8 was releasing 2 reels of excerpts from Jaws. You can't imagine how exciting it was to actually be able to watch Jaws at home. I used to watch it over and over and over again, and eventually I started charging kids 25 cents to come to my little movie theater in my room. I had already been doing it for a while with Star Wars, which I also owned on Super 8, but now I was like doing double features, 50 cents, Star Wars, and Jaws. I used to make quite a bit of money doing that, and of course I spent all of that money on more Star Wars stuff, which you can hear about if you watch one of my podcasts on the Star Wars phenomenon. Being the total Jaws fanatic that I am, I have of course owned it on many different formats. I started with Super 8 and then went to VHS, and then Laserdisc came out, and Laserdisc was a huge jump up in quality, and Universal released this really great box set that included deleted scenes and this really amazing documentary that I'm sure all of you are familiar with by now. Of course, I bought it on DVD, and then I bought it on Blu-ray. When we hit Blu-ray, I remember thinking, this is unbelievable. This is a dream come true. And then it goes to 4K, which is just like beyond imagination. So for a guy that started watching my favorite movies on Super 8 film, this is a stunning development. Are we going to close the beaches?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. As I mentioned before, there wasn't a lot of really cool Jaws merchandise that came out when I was a kid, but in the years that have passed, there's been a lot of really great stuff that's come out. Some of it very expensive that I have my eye on, and I hope that someday I'll be able to purchase some of those things. But really, ultimately, the stuff that's coming out now, the replications of Bruce the Shark and all that kind of stuff is just so cool. From the very first time I saw Jaws in June of 1975, the mechanical shark, Bruce, has been a source of fascination for me and my friends. Recently, I discovered something really cool. The original mechanical shark, or sharks, are obviously long gone, but at some point, Universal made a mold from one of the original sharks. And they created a shark that was going to be hanging on display at Universal Studios theme park. It hung there for a long time, and then eventually they got rid of it, and it ended up in a junkyard. How any of this could have happened is beyond my comprehension, but that shark resided in the junkyard, rotting away for several years. Finally, in 2016, the owner of the junkyard donated the shark to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles. He was totally restored, and he hangs there proudly for anyone that wants to see him. And that list would include me. So as you know by now, Jaws had a huge impact on my life. I love the film. I think it's amazing. Really, for me, it is in the top 3 best films ever made. I think it's the perfect film. I watched it well over 500 times, and I continue to watch it once or twice a year. The recent 3D release was incredible. It was like seeing it brand new for the first time, and my friend Bruce and I went to go see that. If you haven't seen it in 3D, it is truly spectacular. As far as impact, Jaws is only superseded by Star Wars in terms of how it affected my life as a young person. In fact, I made a 3-part series titled The Star Wars Phenomenon. If you haven't seen that, you've got to check it out because I was a total fanatic. In that 3-part series, I make the claim and prove that I was the first Star Wars nerd in the world. So you'll want to check that out. Thank you for joining me for this look back on the incredible movie Jaws. Don't forget to subscribe. Please share your comments and let me know what you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes.